All right, guys, what's going on? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. And you know what? Over the last, well, let's just say ever since the release of XDefiant, if not slightly after release of XDefiant, I remember mentioning in one of my videos, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it was the entire video that was a topic of discussion, mentioning how, in my opinion, I thought the release of season one was XDefiant's kind of last chance, right? Everything in season one needs to happen, or else, the game is not going to look good, etc., etc. And I remember in the comments section, some of you guys had mentioned that season two, you guys felt was the last chance for XDefiant, so to speak, right? In order to fulfill the promises that it is already set to make and everything else, right? Obviously, a lot of things have not happened. A few things have, but not a lot has. Let's just say the wheels haven't been turning as smooth and as fast as we would like, but at the same time, the future looks promising because as of recently, ever since Mark Rubin got back from Florida, he basically mentioned that they're hiring new devs and they're doing a little bit of restructuring inside the dev team, which is a good thing, which means that, their chess pieces could be in the right place to move more efficiently, smoothly, fast, etc., etc., as well as adding more pieces to the board, so to speak. All right, so here is what I wanted to basically touch base with you guys on in terms of everything that you guys have told me, everything that I've said, and I'm just going to lay everything down on the table so that way we can have sort of an easy way of looking at this. Okay, so all right, so obviously, as I may or may not have mentioned, some of you guys believe that season 2 is the last straw because of Black Ops 6 coming out. But I'm going to say right now, let's just forget about Black Ops 6. XDefiant really just needs to focus on XDefiant more than anything else. Obviously, the game itself was not really focusing on what Call of Duty is doing, although I think that the executives at Ubisoft may have a slightly different thing to say about that. However, with that being said, let's just lay it on the table. Let's say that everything in season 2 were to happen, right? Everything that we've asked for. For instance, we're obviously going to get more game modes, more maps. Let's say Prestige is there. Let's say the kill cams is there. Let's say Free For All is there. Let's say Arena 24/7 is there. And let's say a no faction game mode is there. The challenges are there. The weapon camo grind is there. We're getting new weapons, etc., etc. Everything that we want in both ranked and in both pubs, let's say that is all there in season 2. Again, I'm going to say it one more time to lay it out on the table. The game modes such as Free For All, Bomb, aka Search and Destroy, the kill cams being there, and all the little things that you guys have mentioned, right? Like customizable button map layouts and stuff like that, a ping system, like all those little features, both big and small, prestige system, and doing it correctly, adding a little spin on it or whatnot, right? Additional challenges, the weapon mastery camo thing, additional changes to the spider bot. Let's say bunny hopping gets put into a place to where the majority of players are happy, to where it's reasonably balanced, etc., etc. Same thing with the snipers and everything else. I personally think I think snipers are in a much better place now. Let's say the net code is perfected, so to speak, right? And you're no longer getting killed around walls, and the hit detection is really, really solid to the point to where you're like, okay, this is how it should have felt at launch, but hey, better late than never, right? Let's say all of this gets resolved in season 2, which is a little too optimistic, right? But let's just humor ourselves, right? Let's say everything is there, right there on a silver platter, the way you've always wanted it. The question I have for you guys is that going to be enough? Now, obviously, we know that in the course of seasons, we're going to be getting additional content, such as new weapons, such as new maps, possibly new game modes and everything like that. But in terms of everything that I just mentioned here, putting it all out on the table, so to speak, we pretty much, this has been the gist of everything that everybody's been wanting, right? They want to be able to come back and have a reason to play. So challenges, prestige system, a legit camo grind that is linked to challenges, right? Like everything you can think of, right? Okay. And everything else that I mentioned already, because I don't need to repeat myself a third time. Is this going to be enough? And now I'm not necessarily asking if this is going to be enough for Call of Duty Black Ops 6 to not take XDefiant down, right? Because everybody's got that in mind, right? Like, oh, once Black Ops 6 releases, XDefiant is going to completely be erased off of the face of the earth, et cetera, et cetera. So I personally don't think that's going to happen at all. As a matter of fact, that they're just way too different at this point. And I think it's already been established that XDefiant is, there's nothing really at this point that that is going to make players leave XDefiant any more than they already have. Because at this point right now, it seems like the majority of players that are playing XDefiant right now are just coming back to play every so often whenever they feel like it. And I guess they'll wait until a new season comes out and then they'll play again. But I think we all know that with every season that comes out, regardless of what game where you're talking about, right? If you're talking about a new season with every single game, I think it's really safe to say that it is a big thing to be celebrated. So if it's a game that people went and played at some point in time and the new season came out and all these different big updates were to happen, as well as content and everything else, I think people will at least always come back and give it a try. And that's where XDefiant has its advantage, because it is the game that is not going to be over after just 1 year, right? It's going to be a game that's going to be continuously supported. Look at Apex Legends, for instance. Look at Fortnite, for instance. Whenever a new season comes out for these titles, it's like a celebrated moment. It's almost as if the game was a brand new game, but yet different, because when it's a brand new game, it's like you're repeating the cycle over again. But if it's a game that's already been released, you're only hoping that the game will get better and better and better over time, right? Even if you look at, like, obviously I don't play Fortnite or Apex Legends, but I think, at least in theory, for those of you guys that do or have, please let me know. Those two games have only gotten better over time, I'm assuming. Now, obviously, for as long as those games have come out, it's really difficult to really outdo yourself after a while. But in terms of the games reaching their peak, I'm pretty sure they're already there, right? XDefiant has yet to reach its peak. It's a long ways away until it gets there. But a lot of people seem to believe that Season 2 is the last straw. But when it comes to a game that is supposed to be supported for years, right? If it has enough of a player base, if it's making enough money, right? If it manages to survive everything else, like, it's one of those games that is going to be supported. And we are in year 1. Let's not forget about that. We are in Season 1, year 1. Okay. So XDefiant has a long way to go, in my opinion. Granted, it survives. It has a long way to go, and I think the potential is really there, because, quite frankly, if you think about it, we could get an arcade shooter by the time it actually reaches its potential, right? We don't know how long it's going to take to get there or when it gets there, right? None of us do. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But when XDefiant actually does reach its potential, like, I think we can have a serious contender on our hands here. Like, it can literally establish itself as that arcade shooter that is managing to do things correctly, unlike some other arcade shooter franchises out there. At least that's what I'm hoping, specifically and personally as well. I'm one of those people that it doesn't really take too much to make me happy, especially when it comes to games like this. But again, I played the living hell out of arcade shooters since at the time I was into COD, and I've kind of been there before, so to speak, right? But with that being said, XDefiant is still trying to, as best as it can, to be its own thing. And I don't mind XDefiant being literally an alternate Call of Duty, or an alternate whatever you want to call it, right? I really don't. And those little differences, to me, are what, for me, make the biggest difference in terms of my personal experience. And I think, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I picture an XDefiant in the future that is rich of content in terms of game modes. I picture a netcode that works very, very smoothly, with the hit detection being spot on, with no getting hit around corners and stuff like that. I picture a ton of weapons for every single category that have a uniqueness to them, to where you're always swapping. I see ranked growing. I see pubs getting more popular. I see new game modes coming into fruition and stuff like that. Some of the things that you guys have mentioned. I see Rabbids, especially since Mark Rubin himself has kind of mentioned that. And later on down the line, I see something like a Horde mode, or XDefiant's own take on a zombie mode and stuff like that, or a PvE type of mode. I mean, literally, a game can start out as something and stay that way to its core, but it can eventually add some other things in that will invite other players that play different genres of games into their game. Now, I don't necessarily mean that XDefiant necessarily has to become a battle royale, but I am saying that at least the foundation of XDefiant needs to always be there, which is an arcade shooter at its core. And I don't think that that should be sacrificed for the majority of the attention going on to other game modes, because we don't need to make mistakes that some other franchises have made. Because we all know where that ends, because we've seen it before. And as you guys know, history does indeed repeat itself. But anyway, that's what I got for this one, guys. So again, just a quick little outline of questions before I close this out completely. If you get everything that you've been wanting, right, in terms of everything that was mentioned here in this video that everybody has been asking for with XDefiant, right, will that be enough for you personally? And the other question is, do you also think that XDefiant, granted it survives, do you think that other game modes will eventually come into play to where you have like a PvE mode or even a battle royale or something of that nature, or like a horde mode or you know, its own version of zombies? And of course, this is an easy question for me, an easy answer for me, but I will ask you anyway, because I know there's going to be some Call of Duty lovers in here that are going to see this video, and whether you hate it or not, I'm just going to ask this question anyway. Do you guys think that XDefiant will survive the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 storm? Whether it's a weak storm or a strong storm, do you guys think that it's going to have any effect whatsoever on Black Ops 6? That is my third and final question. So with that being said, thank you very much for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.